Numbers have always made sense to me in a way people never did. While other kids were reading comic books, I was studying my father's accounting textbooks, fascinated by the elegant dance of debits and credits. By age 12, I could spot errors in tax returns that even seasoned accountants missed. My father called it my superpower. My older brother Marcus just called it weird. There she goes again, buried in spreadsheets. He'd sneer whenever he caught me working on practice problems. Live a little, Emily. Nobody likes a human calculator. But I didn't care. Numbers were honest in a way humans weren't. They didn't play favorites or hide their true intentions behind fake smiles. 2 plus 2 would always equal 4, no matter how much you wished it didn't. That dedication led me to become a forensic accountant, specializing in fraud investigation. While Marcus followed in our father's footsteps, taking over his successful construction company and expanding it into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, I built my reputation methodically, one case at a time. My work wasn't flashy, but it was meaningful. I helped small businesses recover stolen funds, exposed embezzlement schemes, and even assisted in bringing down a notorious money laundering operation. Not that any of that mattered to my family. At every gathering, Marcus dominated the conversation with tales of his latest business conquest, while my parents beamed with pride. My work was relegated to footnote status, barely worth mentioning between discussions of Marcus's new contracts and expansion plans. So Emily, my mother would say, her tone carefully neutral, still doing that audit thing. I learned to smile and nod, to accept my role as the less successful sibling. It wasn't worth explaining that I just helped recover millions in stolen pension funds, or that the FBI regularly consulted me on complex financial fraud cases. In their eyes, I would always be the odd one out, the daughter who chose a strange, unglamorous path instead of joining the family business. Everything came to a head at our father's retirement party last spring. The ballroom of the Grand Hotel was packed with business associates, friends, and family, all gathered to celebrate Richard Anderson's 30 years of success. Marcus, as the new CEO, was set to give the main speech. I arrived early, helping Mom with the final arrangements while trying to ignore the way she fussed over Marcus's place at the head table. My own seat was tucked away in a corner, practically hidden behind a large floral arrangement. "Emily, darling," Mom called out, her voice carrying that familiar note of disapproval. "Couldn't you have worn something more festive? This is a celebration, not a day at the office." I glanced down at my charcoal gray pantsuit, chosen specifically because I had to head straight to court after the party for a major testimony. "I have work later, Mom." She sighed, that special sigh reserved for my many disappointments. "Of course you do. Heaven forbid you take one day off to properly celebrate your father's retirement." Before I could respond, Marcus swept in, commanding attention in his perfectly tailored Italian suit. "Mom, the place looks amazing." He kissed her cheek, then turned to me with that familiar smirk. "Hey there, little sister. Still rocking the auditor chick, I see." I forced a smile, reminding myself that this was Dad's day. "Hello, Marcus. Congratulations on the new development deal." "Oh, you heard about that?" His surprise seemed genuine. "Didn't think you kept up with actual business news, being so busy with your, what do you call it? Financial forensics." "Forensic accounting," I corrected, even though I knew he was perfectly aware of my job title. "And yes, I do read the business section occasionally." The party progressed predictably. Dad gave an emotional speech about building the company from nothing. Mom cried appropriately. And then it was Marcus's turn at the microphone. He started well enough, talking about our father's legacy and the future of Anderson Construction. But then 3 glasses of champagne in, he went off script. "You know," he said, swaying slightly, "Dad always taught us that success comes from taking risks, from thinking big. Some people," his eyes found mine in a crowd, "prefer to play it safe, to sit in dark offices counting other people's money, too afraid to get their hands dirty in real business." A murmur went through the crowd. Mom's smile became fixed, while Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Take my sister Emily, for example," Marcus continued, ignoring Dad's warning look. "She could have been part of something great, could have helped grow the family legacy. Instead, she chose to become a glorified accountant, spending her days nitpicking over receipts and bank statements." I sat perfectly still, my face carefully blank as he continued his drunken monologue. "I mean, what's the point? What real value does someone like that add to the world? At least real accountants help businesses grow. But forensic accounting, he laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. That's just a fancy term for professional tattletale. Absolutely useless in the real business world. The room had grown uncomfortably quiet. I could feel pitying glances from nearby tables, could see Mom's mortification and Dad's anger. But I didn't move, didn't react. I learned long ago that showing emotion only gave Marcus more ammunition. Marcus, Dad finally interrupted, his voice stern, that's enough. But Marcus was on a roll. No, Dad, it needs to be said. While I'm out there making real money, building real things, Emily's playing detective with spreadsheets. It's embarrassing. She's leaving. I finished for him, standing up smoothly. I'm leaving. Dad, congratulations again on your retirement. I'm sorry, but I have a court appearance I can't miss. I walked out with my head high, ignoring Mom's pleas to stay and Marcus's drunken calls of "see, can't even take a joke." I had a job to do, testimony to give that would help convict a man who'd stolen millions from his employees' pension fund. My work mattered, whether my family understood that or not. The next 3 months passed in a blur of cases and court appearances. I ignored calls from my parents, deleted Marcus's half-hearted apology text without reading it, and threw myself into my work. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning in September, everything changed. The call came at 7:15 a.m., just as I was settling into my office with my first coffee of the day. Marcus's name flashed on my phone screen, and for a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. But something, instinct, maybe, or just years of ingrained big sister obligation, made me answer. Emily? His voice was rough, desperate in a way I'd never heard before. I need your help. The company, there's something wrong. Very wrong. I leaned back in my chair, fighting the urge to remind him how useless my skills were supposed to be. What kind of wrong? Numbers aren't adding up. Money missing. Lots of it. Millions maybe. I can't. He took a shaky breath. Please, Em. I know I don't deserve your help, but this isn't just about me. Dad's retirement fund is tied up in the company. If something's happened, I closed my eyes, already knowing I wouldn't refuse. Not with Dad's future at stake. Send me everything you have. Bank statements, transaction records, vendor contracts. Everything from the last 2 years at least. Thank you, he whispered, sounding close to tears. Emily, I cut him off. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Dad. And Marcus, this isn't free. My usual consulting rate is $500 per hour. There was a long pause before he responded. That's fair. More than fair, considering. I'll clear my schedule for the next few days. Have the documents delivered to my office by noon. I hung up before he could say more, already mentally preparing for what promised to be an intense investigation. Little did I know, I was about to uncover something far bigger and more personal than either of us expected. The documents arrived at exactly 11:58 a.m., 14 boxes of financial records, contracts, and internal memos. Marcus always did have a flair for dramatic timing. I cleared my conference room, ordered lunch, and settled in for what I knew would be a long day. By midnight, I had my first suspicions. By the end of the week, I had proof. And what I found made my blood run cold. The fraud wasn't just extensive, it was elegant. Someone had constructed an intricate web of fake vendors, inflated invoices, and ghost employees, all designed to siphon money from the company so smoothly that even an experienced businessman like Marcus hadn't noticed. But what really caught my attention were the timestamps. This scheme hadn't started 3 months ago or even 6 months ago. It had started exactly 1 year before Dad's retirement. I was staring at a particularly suspicious series of transactions when my office door burst open. Marcus stood there, looking like he hadn't slept in days, his usually immaculate suit wrinkled and loose at the collar. Well? He demanded, dropping into the chair across from me. It's been 5 days, Emily. Tell me you found something. I studied my brother's face carefully. I found a lot of things, Marcus. The question is, how much do you really want to know? He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. What's that supposed to mean? I want to know everything. This is my company we're talking about. Dad's company, I corrected quietly, watching his reaction. At least it was until last year. Something flickered across his face. Guilt? Fear, before he masked it. Find Dad's company that he'd entrusted to me. Just tell me what you found. I pulled out my tablet and pulled up a spreadsheet. In the past 18 months, approximately $4.3 million has been diverted from Anderson Construction through a sophisticated network of shell companies and fraudulent invoices. Marcus went pale. 4.3 million? That's impossible. How did I not see this? Because it was designed not to be seen, I explained, turning the tablet to show him. Look at these vendor names: Summit Development Solutions, Progressive Building Materials, Elite Construction Resources. They all sound legitimate, don't they? All registered as corporations, all with professional websites and business addresses. He nodded slowly. I recognize some of those names. We've been doing business with them since exactly 1 year before Dad's retirement. I finished. Interesting timing, don't you think? Marcus shifted in his chair. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything yet. I'm stating facts. Fact 1. These companies exist only on paper. Their business addresses are vacant lots or non-existent buildings. Fact 2. All payments to these companies are processed through a complex chain of bank accounts before ultimately ending up in an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. I pulled up another document. Fact 3. The authorization for these vendors came from the CEO's office. Your office, Marcus. He jumped up, face flushed. Now wait just a minute. Are you accusing me of stealing from my own company? No, I said calmly. I'm telling you that someone with high-level access to Anderson Construction has been systematically draining it dry. Someone who knew exactly when Dad was planning to retire. Someone who had the authority to approve new vendors without question. Marcus collapsed back into his chair. This is insane. I wouldn't. There's more, I continued, pulling out a thick stack of papers. Remember Jennifer Chen? His face went blank. Who? Your chief financial officer. The one you hired right after Dad announced his retirement plans. The one whose references were impeccable, whose credentials were stellar, and who, as it turns out, doesn't actually exist. What? Jennifer Chen is a ghost, Marcus. Her credentials are forgeries, her references lead to burner phones, and her social security number belongs to a woman who died in 1984. But she had full access to the company's finances, didn't she? Could approve vendors, process payments, move money between accounts. Marcus was shaking now, his face ashen. Stop. Please, just stop. I need to explain. I sat back, folding my hands on the desk. Yes, I think you do. What followed was a confession that broke my heart, not just for the company or for Dad, but for my brother himself. It started small, he whispered, staring at his hands. Just a few thousand here and there. The company was doing well, and I had debts. Gambling debts. I told myself I'd pay it back before anyone noticed. But the debts got bigger, I guessed. He nodded miserably. I met Jennifer. Her real name is Rebecca Walsh. At a casino in Vegas. She said she could help me set up a system to divert funds, just until I got back on my feet. But then she started blackmailing me, threatening to expose everything if I didn't let her take more. And you let her, I said, my voice hard. You let her steal from Dad's company, from his retirement fund, to cover up your own crimes. Tears were running down his face now. I didn't know what else to do. If this got out, it would kill Dad. The shame, the scandal. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a recording. Jennifer/Rebecca's voice filled the room, discussing payment schedules with Marcus. His head snapped up, eyes wide with panic. You recorded our meetings? No, I said quietly. The FBI did. They've been watching Rebecca Walsh for months. She's pulled this same scam on 3 other companies. I've been working with them on the investigation since you called me. Marcus lurched to his feet. You set me up. Your own brother. I protected the company. I corrected him. I protected Dad. The FBI is willing to treat you as a victim of extortion rather than a co-conspirator, thanks to these recordings. Rebecca and her associates will go to prison. The money in the Cayman accounts has already been frozen and will be returned to Anderson Construction. And me, he whispered. You'll have to step down as CEO, obviously. There will be fines, probably some community service, but no jail time as long as you cooperate fully. I stood up, gathering my files. Oh, and one more thing. You'll be paying back every penny you took, with interest. I've already drawn up a repayment schedule. It's quite aggressive, but then again, my rates are quite reasonable for a useless forensic accountant. The meeting with our parents the next day was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Mom cried, Dad raged, and Marcus sat there looking like a scolded schoolboy as I laid out the evidence and the resolution. But when I finished explaining how I'd worked with the FBI to save both the company and Marcus from complete destruction, Dad did something he'd never done before. He stood up, walked around the table, and hugged me tight. My brilliant girl, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I am so proud of you. That was 6 months ago. Anderson Construction is back on solid ground now, with Dad temporarily out of retirement to help right the ship while Marcus gets the help he needs for his gambling addiction. Mom still occasionally sighs about the scandal, but even she has started bragging to her friends about her daughter, the financial crime fighter. As for Marcus, he's different now. Humbled, certainly, but also more genuine. Last week, he stopped by my office with coffee and an actual heartfelt apology. I was jealous, he admitted, staring into his cup. You always made everything look so easy, so clean. Numbers, patterns, problems, you just saw them differently. I wanted to be that sure of myself, that confident in my abilities. Instead, I tried to tear you down to make myself feel bigger. I accepted his coffee and his apology, but not his self-pity. You're good at plenty of things, Marcus. Running crews, managing projects, inspiring people to do their best work. Those are real skills. You just got lost somewhere along the way. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I did, but he found me. Guess being a professional tattletale has its uses after all. I threw a pencil at him, and for the first time in years, we both laughed. Really laughed. Together. Yesterday, Dad called to ask if I consider taking on a permanent role at Anderson Construction, heading up a new compliance and audit department. We need your eyes, he said. Your way of seeing things. It's time this became a true family business with all our strengths working together. I haven't given him an answer yet. Part of me loves my independence, my reputation as a solo practitioner. But another part remembers that little girl with her father's accounting books, dreaming of working alongside her family. Maybe it's time for a new chapter. After all, numbers may not lie, but sometimes they do tell us when it's time for a change. In the end,